When we talk about toxic people, our instinct is to point the finger outward. We want to dissect their behavior, expose their manipulation, and decode their patterns. But here's the truth most of us don't want to admit. Toxic people don't survive where boundaries are strong. They only flourish in spaces where lines are blurred, where silence is mistaken for consent, and where the desire to keep peace overrides the courage to protect our peace. This is why the conversation has to begin not with them, but with us. Boundaries are not just a defense mechanism, they are a declaration of self-respect. Think of boundaries like the immune system of our emotional life. Just as our body knows how to recognize what belongs and what doesn't, boundaries train our relationships to do the same. When they're weak, anything can enter doubt, disrespect, manipulation. And just as a weak immune system invites illness, weak boundaries invite toxicity. But when they are clear, they don't build walls of isolation. They act like filters. They let in kindness, love, reciprocity. They let out what harms, insults, or diminishes us. The struggle is, many of us were never taught this. From childhood, some of us were told to obey without question, to adjust even when it hurt, to be nice, even when we felt uncomfortable. We learned that saying no was rude, selfish, or disrespectful. And so, as adults, we carry this conditioning forward. We avoid confrontation, we stay quiet when something feels wrong, and slowly, without realizing it, we train toxic people that they can cross into our lives without resistance. But boundaries are not cruelty, boundaries are clarity. When you say, "I don't accept being spoken to this way," you're not attacking someone. You're informing them of the rules of engagement if they want access to you. Boundaries do not push love away. They protect love so it can grow without being contaminated by disrespect. And here's the irony. The people who are meant for you will never be offended by your boundaries. They'll respect them, even appreciate them, because your clarity makes it safe for them to be themselves too. The only ones who resist your boundaries are the ones who benefited from you not having any. I often think of boundaries as the frame around a painting. Without a frame, the art can bleed into the walls, lose its shape, and even be damaged. But when framed, the art is not diminished. It is elevated, honored, preserved. You are that painting. Your time, your energy, your values are the art. Boundaries are the frame that says, "This is where I end, and where you begin." Cross this, and the picture loses its integrity. Stay within it, and beauty can be shared. Yes, setting boundaries feels uncomfortable at first. It feels unnatural because you're breaking years of conditioning. You may even lose people when you enforce them. But pause and ask yourself, do you really lose people? Or do you finally see who was only there because your lack of boundaries made it convenient for them? Boundaries don't cost you real relationships, they reveal them. So, the first powerful change to stop attracting toxic people is not about identifying red flags in others. It is about drawing clear lines in yourself. It is the decision to no longer apologize for protecting your peace, because when you do that, something remarkable happens. You stop speaking the language of toxicity, and when you stop speaking that language, the people who thrive on it can no longer hear you. And so, remember this, you do not push people away by having boundaries. You push toxicity away, and what remains is love, respect, and the kind of connection that was waiting for you all along. ***, boundaries are not barriers, they are bridges. They don't close the door to love, they open the way to love without fear. If boundaries are the frame that protects the painting of your life, then self-respect is the brushstroke that gives that painting its true beauty. And here is where many of us stumble. We confuse kindness with self-erasure, we confuse being accommodating with being valuable, and in that confusion, we end up opening doors for toxic people to enter. At the heart of this problem lies the habit of people pleasing. It looks innocent on the surface, We say yes to keep the peace. We smile to avoid tension. We adjust so others won't be uncomfortable. But when repeated over time, pleasing sends one very loud message: my worth is negotiable, and toxic people, without fail, will hear it. The psychology behind people pleasing is complex, but at its core, it's rooted in fear. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of being unloved. Many of us grow up believing that love is conditional, that if we make a mistake, if we disappoint someone, if we show the parts of ourselves that are messy or imperfect, we will lose connection. So we learn to perform. We become experts at sensing others' moods, predicting what they want to hear, and shaping ourselves into whatever version is least likely to upset them. But here's the paradox: in trying to be loved by everyone, we betray ourselves, and in betraying ourselves, we attract those who are not here to love us, but to use us. You see, people, pleasing is not the language of love. It is the language of survival. It is the nervous system saying, if I keep everyone happy, I will stay safe. But safe is not the same as free. And when you live in that survival mode, you are not attracting genuine connection. You are attracting those who sense that you will bend, that you will give, that you will tolerate. Toxic people thrive in such spaces because they are not looking for equals. They are looking for providers of their comfort. What changes everything is the decision to replace people pleasing with self-respect. And let me be clear, self-respect is not arrogance. It is not about being difficult, cold, or unyielding. Self-respect is the quiet conviction that your worth is not up for negotiation. It is the courage to let others feel disappointed, even upset, rather than constantly shrinking yourself to prevent it. Because every time you sacrifice your truth for approval, you teach yourself a painful lesson, that being loved is more important than being real. And over time, that lesson erodes your sense of self until you can't even recognize what you actually want, what you actually believe. Self-respect restores that recognition. It teaches you to say, my yes means something because I also know how to say no. It teaches you that true kindness is not in pleasing everyone, but in honoring yourself while still offering compassion to others. And the most profound shift is this: when you respect yourself, you attract people who respect you. The very energy of self-respect filters out those who are looking for someone to exploit. They lose interest quickly because you no longer provide the compliance they seek. Yes, this shift is uncomfortable. Yes, you will disappoint people who are used to your endless availability. But here's the clarity. Their disappointment is not a sign that you are wrong. It is a sign that they were invested in the version of you that abandoned yourself for their comfort. And if losing that version of you makes them walk away, then you haven't lost love. You've lost exploitation. So the powerful change here is not to stop being kind, but to stop sacrificing yourself in the name of kindness. Because kindness without self-respect is just self-erasure dressed in politeness. And when you stop erasing yourself, you stop being invisible to the very people who are capable of loving you as you are. Remember this, people. Pleasing wins you approval, but self-respect wins you freedom. And freedom is where love, dignity, and true connection finally begin. Conflict is a word that makes many of us uncomfortable. We hear it and immediately think of arguments, broken relationships, or awkward silences that never heal. And because of that discomfort, we often avoid it altogether. We swallow our feelings, we nod when we want to shake our heads, and we smile when our hearts are restless. We think we are protecting peace, but in reality, we are protecting a fragile illusion. And illusions are exactly where toxic people thrive. The truth is, conflict is not the enemy. Conflict is not the breaking of peace. It is the testing of truth. When two people disagree, what emerges is not hostility but clarity. You discover who can handle honesty, who can hold space for difference, who values respect more than dominance. And in that moment, you also discover who cannot. This is why conflict is not something to fear, but something to embrace, because it acts as a filter. It filters out those who are threatened by your voice, and it strengthens connections with those who respect it. Think about it. If every time you disagree you choose silence, what you are really saying is, my comfort doesn't matter, my values don't matter, my truth doesn't matter. And the more you practice that silence, the more you invite people who benefit from it. Toxic individuals sense very quickly who is afraid of confrontation, and they use that fear as a tool. They know you won't challenge them. They know you'll carry the weight of unspoken words. And so they push further, crossing lines, demanding more, until you feel trapped in a relationship that feeds on your silence. But when you begin to reframe conflict as clarity, everything changes. You stop seeing disagreement as the end of connection and start seeing it as the beginning of authenticity. Because the people who truly belong in your life will not vanish when you say, I see this differently. They will not collapse when you say, that doesn't work for me. In fact, those words will deepen your bond because they will know you are not hiding behind politeness. You are showing up as your whole self. Of course, conflict does not mean cruelty. It is not about shouting or overpowering. It is about standing in your truth with calmness and courage. It is about saying what you mean without demeaning, expressing your boundaries without tearing someone down. Conflict handled with respect does not destroy relationship. It reveals which relationships were built on truth and which were built on convenience. And those built on convenience were never meant to last. This is why reframing conflict is such a powerful change in stopping the attraction of toxic people. Because once you are unafraid of conflict, you are no longer easy to control. You are no longer a safe space for manipulation. You become someone who cannot be silenced, someone who cannot be pressured into compliance, and for toxic people, that makes you uninteresting. They will move on, not because you chase them away, but because you no longer play the role they were counting on you to play. Yes, it feels uncomfortable in the beginning. Yes, your voice might shake when you first speak up, but that trembling voice is more powerful than years of silence, because in that moment you are declaring that your peace matters as much as anyone else's. And with each act of courage, your confidence grows and the fear of conflict fades. So let us stop thinking of conflict as destruction. Let us see it as revelation. It is not the end of connection. It is the doorway to authentic connection. Because when you dare to disagree with respect, you don't push love away. You give it the chance to be real. Conflict is not a threat to love. It is the test of love, and those who truly value you will always pass that test. If boundaries protect us, and self-respect empowers us, and conflict brings clarity, then the next shift is perhaps the most intimate one, breaking the cycle of self-doubt. Because no matter how strong your boundaries are, no matter how respectfully you speak up, if deep down you doubt your own worth, you will always find yourself vulnerable to toxic people. They sense it, they feed on it, and they amplify it until you begin to believe their distorted version of who you are. Self-doubt is not born overnight. It grows slowly, often in silence. Sometimes it begins in childhood, when love was conditional, when approval depended on achievement, appearance, or obedience. Sometimes it begins later, when failures or heartbreaks whisper that you are not enough. Over time, these whispers become a script in your mind. Asterisk, what if I'm not good enough? What if they leave? What if I can't do better than this? Asterisk, and once you start living by that script, toxic people step in as editors, rewriting your story in ways that keep you small, dependent, and afraid to walk away. This is why self, Doubt is the perfect playground for manipulation. When you doubt yourself, you outsource your sense of worth to others. You wait for them to validate you, to tell you who you are, to give you permission to feel valuable. And toxic people will gladly take that position of power, not to uplift you, but to keep you tethered. They will praise you when it serves their interest, and withhold it when they want to keep you uncertain. It is a cycle designed to make you question yourself so deeply that their voice feels louder than your own. But here is the liberating truth: you do not have to accept their version of you. You do not have to live by the script of doubt. The most powerful shift comes when you stop outsourcing your worth and begin reclaiming it from within. Self-worth cannot be borrowed, it cannot be begged for, and it cannot be maintained by constant approval. It has to be rooted in the quiet, unshakable belief that you are enough as you are flawed, growing, learning, but still worthy. Breaking the cycle of self-doubt does not mean you will never question yourself again. Doubt is human. But it does mean that when doubt comes, you will not hand it the steering wheel of your life. You will not let it decide how much love you deserve or how much respect you should tolerate. Instead, you will challenge it. You will remind yourself, I am not defined by someone else's inability to value me. I am defined by the values I choose to live by. And when you begin to live this way, toxic people lose their grip. Their criticism doesn't sink as deep because your worth is not up for debate. Their manipulation doesn't hold as strong because you no longer need their validation to feel whole. You stand taller, not because life is suddenly easy, but because you no longer apologize for being who you are. Yes, the journey to break self-doubt is not simple. It requires patience, healing, and practice. It means catching yourself when you shrink and choosing instead to expand. It means speaking kindly to yourself, especially when the world is harsh. But every small act of self-affirmation chips away at the old script, until one day you wake up and realize the voice in your head is no longer your enemy. It is your ally. So here is the invitation. Stop letting toxic people be the authors of your story. Stop handing them the pen through your silence and uncertainty. Your worth does not depend on their approval, and your life does not need their permission. *** self. Doubt is the soil where toxicity grows. Self-belief is the ground where it cannot survive. Plant yourself there, and no one can uproot you. One of the most profound shifts in breaking free from toxic patterns is learning to redefine what we call normal. Because here is the hard truth, many of us do not recognize toxicity when it shows up, not because we are blind, but because it feels familiar. The nervous system adapts to whatever it experiences repeatedly. If your early environment was chaotic, unpredictable, or conditional, your body starts to mistake that chaos for connection. It feels like home even when it hurts, and so later in life, when peace enters the room, it can feel foreign. Calmness feels boring, respect feels suspicious, and kindness feels almost unbelievable. This is why so many people who deeply desire healthy relationships find themselves repeatedly drawn to unhealthy ones. It is not always a lack of awareness, it is a distorted sense of normal. The storm feels exciting because it matches the rhythm you once knew, while stability feels strange because it doesn't. And so, unconsciously, you may chase drama thinking it is passion, or tolerate disrespect thinking it is love. Toxic people thrive in this confusion because they know how to play into that sense of familiarity. They mirror what feels normal to you, even if it is destructive. The shift comes when you begin to consciously redefine normal for yourself. And this is not about rejecting where you came from. It is about realizing that where you came from does not have to be where you remain. Redefining normal means asking, What does respect actually look like? What does healthy love feel like in my body? What does it mean to be heard without being shouted down, to be valued without being used, to be cared for without conditions? And once you begin to experience even glimpses of that, you realize that what you once accepted as just the way it is was never love, never peace, never respect. It was dysfunction disguised as connection. The process takes time because the body must learn what the mind already understands. At first, peace may feel uncomfortable. You may even sabotage it, unconsciously creating drama because your nervous system is still addicted to the chaos. But with patience, you can retrain yourself to see calmness not as emptiness, but as safety. You can learn to embrace respect, not as coldness, but as genuine care. And you can begin to view consistency not as dullness, but as stability. When you redefine normal, you no longer fall for the glitter of toxicity. You stop confusing control with love, intensity with intimacy, and manipulation with care. Instead, you start seeking relationships where your nervous system can exhale, not ones where it is constantly on guard. And this is where the most powerful change occurs, because toxic people cannot survive in environments where calmness is valued over chaos, where respect is valued over dominance, where truth is valued over manipulation. Of course, this redefinition requires courage. It means breaking generational cycles, questioning patterns you once thought were unchangeable, and sometimes even stepping away from people who cannot or will not adapt to this new standard. But the reward is worth it, because once you raise the bar for what normal means in your life, you stop settling for less. You stop entertaining toxicity not because you push it away, but because it no longer matches the frequency of your existence. So if you want to stop attracting toxic people, start by redefining your normal. Make calmness your new comfort zone, make respect your new expectation, and make reciprocity your new standard. Because the love you accept sets the tone for the love you receive. Drama is not depth, chaos is not connection, and disrespect is not love. Redefine your normal, and you redefine your destiny. If there is one thread that ties together everything we have spoken about boundaries, self-respect, conflict, overcoming self-doubt, and redefining normal, it is this alignment. Living in alignment with who you truly are is the most powerful change you can make if you want to stop attracting toxic people. Because toxicity only thrives where there is a gap between your inner values and your outer actions. That gap becomes the entry point for manipulation, the space where people can convince you to betray yourself in order to belong. Most of us, at some point, have lived out of alignment. We say yes when we mean no. We laugh at jokes that cut us just to avoid awkwardness. We pretend we're fine when inside we're breaking, and over time, this double life wears us down. It teaches others that we are negotiable, that we will bend even at the cost of our truth. Toxic people sense this dissonance immediately. They know that as long as you value external approval more than internal peace, you will remain vulnerable to their games. But alignment is freedom. When your words, your choices, and your values all stand in the same place, you no longer need to beg for acceptance. You no longer feel the panic of rejection, because rejection cannot take away who you are. You stop living for applause and start living from conviction. And here's the beauty of it. When you live in alignment, you naturally repel those who feed on inconsistency, and you naturally attract those who value authenticity. Alignment does not mean perfection. It does not mean you will never compromise or never make mistakes. It means that when you look at yourself in the mirror, you know you are not abandoning yourself for someone else's comfort. It means that your decisions reflect your values, even when it costs you approval, and sometimes it will cost you. People who benefited from your silence will be unsettled by your voice. Those who thrived on your compliance will be shaken by your clarity. But what you lose in temporary approval, you gain in lasting dignity. Living in alignment is also an act of deep self-trust. It says, I believe that who I am is enough, even if others walk away. And that trust becomes a shield. Because the truth is, toxic people do not just manipulate. They exploit doubt. They rely on your fear of being alone, your fear of disappointing others, your fear of being misunderstood. But when you trust yourself, those fears lose their grip. You can let go of people who cannot honor your truth, not with bitterness, but with peace. Yes, alignment can be lonely at first. The silence after walking away from relationships built on pretense can feel heavy. But that silence is not emptiness. It is space. Space for people who see you, not the version you performed. Space for love that does not require you to shrink. Space for peace that does not punish you for existing. And here is the most important part. When you live in alignment, you no longer attract toxic people because you no longer entertain them. They may still appear, but they cannot stay. Your clarity exposes their games too quickly. Your authenticity holds up a mirror they cannot bear to face. And so they fade, not because you push them away, but because your life is no longer a stage for their drama. So if you are searching for one powerful change to stop attracting toxic people, let it be this. Choose alignment. Live in such a way that your words, your choices, and your values all tell the same story. Because a life in alignment is a life where toxicity cannot breathe. Approval fades, applause fades, but alignment lasts. Choose alignment, and you will choose freedom.